Hello and welcome to the Coast Town Podcast. I'm
The
eating
one and
a
only podcast where somebody usually shows up late, and that somebody's usually me.
yep, and I'm eating a crystal right now to represent the good. I mean the bad. I mean this country of America where comics are made, and let's talk about that. So, American comics.
Okay, wait, before we get on to any kind of real topic, are you some kind of like Steven Universe fanboy to eat crystals in the morning?
What does that even unpack that?
I mean, like, is this one of those like this is my train of logic? Are you okay? So get ready for this. This is a real stretch. This is like Twister level, left hand to red dot level stretch. If you're ready for this, okay. So
Okay.
uh, you're eating a crystal. Crystal gems. Crystals are crystal gems. So we've gone from crystals to crystal gems. Then we have Steven Universe, which is all about crystal gems, and then there's a saying that says you are what you eat. So if you eat a crystal, aka a crystal gem, you become a crystal gem. And who doesn't want to become a crystal gem if they're a fan of Steven Universe? There you go. That's my logic.
I'm definitely Garnet. I'm definitely the fat, gross, purple woman.
That's amethyst.
My bad. See. I'm not even a real fan. I
I
forgot the
think
names.
I think you didn't even have to say anything else after that because we now know how much of a fan of Steven Universe you are.
Hey man, I watched like the first three seasons when I was in high school. It was a good show.
Okay, I think the third season didn't even come out. Oh wait, like okay, you just got out of high school. Okay, that makes sense now.
It might have been the
Oh,
first. I don't know. Anyways, so
yeah. So back to the real topic that we were talking about before.
American comics. Okay, so all right. So picture this. All right, I'm gonna set the scene for you. I
Wait,
open up.
before we start this, let me just remind you that last week you said manga was the only legitimate form of art and comics are useless. So that being said, now say what you were going to say for sure.
Which ties into what I'm about to say because I'm going to set the scene for you. So picture me, Oliver, a normal young boy, right? I open up my illegal comic or manga reading service and I see One Piece, Chapter 1. I start there. I start reading the story. Now, the idea that. So, some people on the internet say, you'll hear this for all the shonen series. You'll be like, yeah, it doesn't really start till chapter 300. You could just skip to there. And the idea of that is insane to me. Like, the idea that you would start at, chapter slash the equivalent issue 300 is ridiculous. But in comics, American comic culture, that is just what you do. In fact, a lot of people just pick up a graphic novel. They say, oh, Frank Miller, whoever, did this part, so I'm just going to read this part. And that makes sense because everything has a different writer and artist on each run of the character. But the idea of that drives me insane because the idea that, okay, if I start Batman Year One, good story, right? It's where Frank Miller's run on Batman started. The story starts off with Bruce Wayne coming from a vacation and coming back to be Batman. So it's like, yeah, it's a good starting off point. But the fact that he was there before just drives me insane because I want to see it.
Yeah, but at some point, once you get tired of origin stories, if every writer began from the very beginning all over again.
Well, what I mean to say is that the fact that there's continuity before his run started is the problem. You see what I mean? And this is the problem with when every new writer starts a run. Like, each run is essentially a new story, kind of, but it's continuing off the last one, and I want to see all the continuity. But if I start from like the 40s or the 60s, it's gonna be awful because the comic writing back then was awful.
Yeah, well, I mean, the comics were used for a very different purpose back then. I think you can say a similar thing about like children's television shows. So, by pure coincidence, last night I saw the first two episodes of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power on Netflix, right? Which is like probably the most kid show you can watch. But for some reason, it had like conflicted I was about to say molarity, which is something completely different. But I've only had 3 hours of sleep. I don't know if you can tell. I'm on a lot of caffeine right now, so
Mm.
the it has like the main character starting off being evil and like having to come to terms with the fact that the place that she grew up isn't that great. And like you couldn't even get this on the air in 1970 or whatever because they would be like, why is the main character bad? We're looking for main characters that are good. Like there was so much moral panic back then about, D&D and video games and pretty much everything else that you couldn't even do something like that, which is why I think a lot of the comics from the very early age, you'd say golden age or silver age comics, are so straightforward and kind of like just go from point A to point B without really thinking about what it takes to get there. Like no one really deals with the fact that Batman, beats up his criminals that he faces up, against nearly to death every single time that he does that until way, way later, like in the 90s or the 2000s era at earliest, which is kind of when people started accepting their heroes being gray at all. What were we talking about again? I completely forgot. I just went on a
Yeah, that's a
rant.
good point. I know, I know. Yeah, obviously, like the comics have gotten better. Another good example of that is the character of Magneto, because in uh in the '60s or yeah '60s '60s X Men, the very first X Men comics, which I've actually read. I actually really tried. I read like surprisingly, I actually read like probably the first like 8 issues
You
of.
completely cut out for
And
me.
in
So
the
just repeat
beginning,
what you said again, I guess.
Magneto is just the villain, right? But as what's the last thing?
Oh,
What's the last
and
thing
it's
you
gone
heard?
again. Oh boy, this should be fun. Okay.
What's the last part you heard? Hello? I can't hear now.
I couldn't hear you for the past 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, so did you hear me start to talk about Magneto?
I heard the very beginning of what you said about Magneto.
Okay,
Just just the yeah, after 60s comics, it cut off.
so in the '60s, Magneto was just the bad guy, right? The main X Men team would just fight Magneto. They would fight other villains, but Magneto was sort of the reoccurring one. And when Magneto showed up, he was very much characterized as just the bad guy. He's just a comic book villain. But as time goes on, it's like they start to explore the fact that Magneto and Professor X are sort of, in a way, want something similar, but or they want, in a vague sense, the same goal, but they have a very different philosophy on how to achieve that and on what they want their outcomes to be. Right. So the idea that Magneto is an anti-hero or even a hero in a lot of cases didn't come till later.
Yeah. And for example, when they had like in the early days, they didn't really have any villains teaming up with heroes for any particular reason. But like nowadays, villains are so popular in the comic canon that you have team ups all the time. Where for one particular like existential threat like Galactus or something, all the heroes and villains just fight together just for that short period of time. Which like I'm assuming in the 60s and 70s would have been like just like teaming up with Hitler or something. Maybe it's like at that point the world was so confused about what to think in terms of like evil and not evil that they just wanted everything cut and dry. But nowadays, the fact that the world is pretty gray is well known to the point where we can have Magneto team up with Professor X to fight Apocalypse or whatever it is, and then next week go back to disagreeing about whether they should kill humans or work with them.
Yeah. And you mentioned children's media. I think it's very telling that in Sonic Adventure 2, the final resolution of the game is the heroes and the villains fighting one force from crashing into the earth. Sonic and Shadow both becoming Super Sonic and Super Shadow to stop the original prototype Ultimate Life Form from crashing on a meteor into Earth. You know, that really symbolizes the true beauty of how morality is gray in storytelling.
I was like, there should be like, in some places, you've worked in places before. You know how sometimes they have like a sign that says it's been like so many days since workplace injury. I
Yeah.
feel like we should have something like that, but for Sonic, it's like it's been 5 minutes since we last talked about Sonic.
We need to just keep, Sonic the Hedgehog is very important to me, and I can't go 2 seconds without mentioning it. So
Which we've actually done. I don't know if you'd call it a good job since we're talking about the grayness between good and bad. We'd probably call it an indifferent job. Of the last two podcasts, we haven't really said anything about Sonic. So I feel like we're letting our audience down at this point by not talking
yeah,
about Sonic.
I'm pretty sure I can recite like the first time that Sonic and Shadow met, basically word for word.
Oh, you know what? Just to make up our Sonic quota, let's do that because I don't know what they said, and this would probably be entertaining for me as well to know what exactly Sonic and Shadow said when they first met.
All right, so the scene is you just beat the first little boss. Okay, well, hold on, let me go over a little bit. So the first level is City Escape, right? The military has captured Sonic because even though he's blue and he acts nothing like Shadow the Hedgehog, everyone in the world mistakes Sonic for Shadow. Because Shadow, and the reason the military is after Shadow is because Shadow got released from the his prison inside of the a giant pyramid because Eggman released Shadow from his prison, and Eggman promised Shadow that if I'll do listen. Oh no, because Eggman releases Shadow from his stasis, Shadow is now loyal to Eggman, and so Eggman tells Shadow to go find the seven Chaos Emeralds for him, right? Okay, so Shadow goes off and starts causing a lot of ruckus. So the military's after him. So they see Sonic and they're like, "Oh, that's Shadow." So they capture Sonic, arrest him, and capture him in a helicopter. And the first level of the hero story of Sonic Adventure 2 is Sonic. In 2 seconds he like bursts out of the helicopter and fashions the helicopter door into a snowboard for some reason, and then flies down and snowboards
Wait, wait,
on the
wait, wait,
road.
wait, wait. What? Why didn't they just make it a skateboard? Why did they have to make it a snowboard?
I don't know. It's so weird. He snowboards down the road and there's no snow.
Well, I mean, yeah. I assume there was no snow.
Yeah.
Was snow an option?
No.
Is this like foreshadowing like Sonic and Mario at the Olympics or something at the Winter Olympics? This is like how they forecast that game 10 years before it happened.
Maybe so. Well, you know what? In Sonic Adventure 1, there is a part where you do snowboard in actual snow. So I'm thinking they just reuse the mechanics for this opening level.
Oh my god! What, you actually play as Sonic snowboarding down this road with no snow on it?
Yeah, that's the first level. And well, that's part of the first level, and then you start running. But anyways, after City Escape, you then come in contact with one of the military's robots, and you beat it. And in this scene, we see like right after you beat it, like the military swarms you, goes stop right there, and then so while the military's swarming Sonic, Shadow pops up, and he goes God, what does he say? Hold on, I'm trying to remember it now. He goes, "It's that fake hedgehog," and then Sonic, no, Sonic goes, "Hey, look, it's that fake hedgehog," and then Shadow goes, "Faker, huh? Please, you're not even good enough to be my fake. Chaos control!" And then Shadow teleports beside Sonic, and they bump heads with each other, and like the Chaos Emerald that Shadow has goes on the ground or something. You
What,
know
just
what?
pops out of him?
Yeah.
I'm dying laughing over here, by the way. So please continue, please.
Wait, I might be mixing up the dialogue with a further scene. No, I think I mixed up that dialogue because that's in the scene where Sonic and Shadow fight in the forest while the bombs are about to go off. So I just mixed up the dialogue between scenes. I can't actually remember the dialogue when they first meet, but I remember the dialogue when they battle. Okay.
This is
That's
so
the
great.
that's the
This
end
is,
of
by the
this.
way, this is why you should do the Sonic lecture, you know? And I know you say you need Matt. I mean, you and Matt should both do it, obviously. But like
Yeah,
this
we
Sonic lecture is going to be next level if you're actually just straight up just remembering dialogue that Sonic and Shadow had from
I
not
re-
even the part where you're supposed to remember it. You're remembering too much. That's the problem right now.
I mean, I remember basically the whole plot to the game, and I have it all written down. I found it, by the way. I found all the notes, the
Oh
10,000
no.
words.
Oh,
It's not,
was it? Where was it?
it's just on my desktop. It was in a
Oh.
folder called Sonic. It was, but my desktop was messy. But yeah, it's not even done yet. Like, I haven't even written about all the games, and it's like over 10,000 words.
Oh my god.
It's
You know,
very detailed.
Sonic lecture coming soon. TM 2020 release date.
Yeah.
Tentative. Like the Final Fantasy VII remake. We'll just keep on pushing it back. It's fine.
I hope that doesn't come out. Anyways, so speaking of comics, Sonic has comics, and people say they're really good.
Yeah, this is what I've been thinking about, like the Sonic comics and specifically the Transformers comics, which apparently now are just like straight up just totally weird. They're just doing all kinds of weird stuff, like exploring what it means to be like what gender the Transformers have. Like they've just taken it to a whole different level
They're
with this.
robots.
Well, yeah, but they're not. They're robotic. Or this is part of what they address in this Transformers thing. By the way, they're like we're robots, but like they reproduce and stuff, and it's
Wait,
just
what?
gone. It's gone crazy. I don't even know about this firsthand. Someone told me about this that the Transformers comics are now basically like some insane next level type thing, and from what I've seen of Sonic comics, it looks like they're the same too.
Yeah. Now I want to read Transformers comics. Wait, Transformers.
Exactly. No, no, wait. You're joking, but that's actually part of the comic, from what I've been told.
Really?
Yeah.
It makes sense. They've been hinting at it all along.
It's like it was in the name the whole time. You should have
I
picked up
know.
on it earlier.
Robots in disguise. Oh my god.
Oh wait, I think that's hate speech.
Wait. Oh, my bad. Sorry. But
Okay.
anyways, um, yeah, the Sonic comics. It's like there's all these other characters that aren't even in the games and all this other lore or
Yeah,
something.
like wait. Okay. So remember last week we talked about game updates. If we
Yeah.
extend that logic to like what you're basically talking about with these writers going on with these comics, they're adapting it in a way that kind of changes what the original interpretation of the character was. You're
hmm
fine with that though.
Well, okay, I see where you're going with this, but the problem. Okay, so let's give an example. So Andrew Hussey, who wrote Homestuck.
Oh no, not
So
okay.
so
So if for those of you
hold on,
playing at home, so far we've hit Sonic,
Homestuck,
and
Steven
Homestuck.
Universe.
You're one slot away from hitting Tic Tac Toe, if you're playing Coast Town Tic Tac Toe at home. So
Okay, so Homestuck was written. The intentions as Andrew Hussey wrote his comic, it became a very different comic as it went on. Right? That's fine. That's gonna happen with everything. Okay. I don't have a problem with serialization over time because I consider each page of Homestuck to be its own complete work. And so naturally, the later pages are going to be way different. But where Andrew Hussey messed up, this is a fatal error he did. Where he messed up, he edited earlier pages of his work. He did the game updates with comics. He edited earlier pages of the work because you're never going to read Homestuck, right? So I don't care about spoiling it, right?
no, I'm never gonna read Homestuck. Don't
Okay.
worry about that.
So there's a part where John Egbert. Okay, I can't even begin. Okay, so I'm just not gonna do the lore. I'm just gonna explain the part. So
There's a
John.
20-minute video on Gigabyte's channel that you can watch if you want to know about the lore of Homestuck. Okay, assuming they've
Okay,
watched that video, explain now. Okay.
all right. So when John Egbert finds the Juju, the Homestuck logo, he finds the Homestuck logo Juju, and he sticks his hand inside of the Homestuck logo, and he reaches his arm into earlier pages of the comic. Not time traveling, because time traveling is a thing, and multiple dimensions are a thing in the Homestuck universe, but specifically what he does is goes into the earlier pages of the webcomic himself by sticking his hand inside of the Homestuck logo Juju. So when he does this, he puts his arm into, or he's experimenting, like what does this do? And he puts his arm into earlier parts of the webcomic. And so what Andrew Hussey did was edit earlier pages to make his arm show in the background where he where he stuck his hand in. Now, some people may say, oh, this is a cool little Easter egg that he did. But here's the problem people attribute that arm being there. People think that that arm was just there from the beginning, and they say, oh, what an expert at foreshadowing Andrew Hussey is. When in reality, that arm and also there's oil spills, right? Because what John Egbert does is he gathers oil. No. Okay, so
This is the best
he
summary of Homestuck I've ever
no
heard. It's
he
so
needs
wonderful.
to there's a piano that he needs to get oil out of. And so what he does is to get the oil out of the piano in this weird way, he puts the oil into earlier pages of the comic so you can see oil spills and arms that weren't there before, and people say, "Oh, Andrew Hussey is such a genius at foreshadowing," when really that was never the plan. He retroactively put that in his work. That's the kind of stuff that I have a problem with, is changing old work like that. That's what game updates are. I don't have a problem with serialization. You
Well,
see
I
what I
mean,
mean?
that seems pretty benign compared to what game updates are. But
Well,
I
okay.
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but this is you could they literally could just ask anyone and they would be, told that was put in after the fact, but that doesn't change the fact that it's kind of cool. Would it have been cool if he had thought of that before? Sure, but it's like something that he's working on sequentially and he's not waiting till the very end to put it all out. So he doesn't really have a chance to finish the story and then fix anything. He's just putting it all out as it comes out. So I mean, you have to give him some amount of liberty when he's doing that.
Okay, I'll agree that it is really cool. I do think it's cool, but the way I'm viewing this is he's editing the old pages of his work, and I think that there at least should be the original versions without the arm and the oil spills available still to read. And what's so strange about this is in the scene where John sticks his arm in the juju, it shows the old panels being edited, and it shows the old panels, like it shows a montage of the old panels with the arms in them. I think that was enough. I don't think that he needed to then go back to the actual old panels and put the arms in there. I mean, it is kind of cool that he did that, but I just don't think it was necessary, and it edits the old work. You see what I mean?
I feel like too, like if you're a computer, this is where like rule one interfered with rule two, and then like you had some kind of like do not compute type error, and then you like overheated because one of your tenets seems to be that you shouldn't edit anything that you've already done, and second is Homestuck is like your god or whatever, so you're having some kind of weird like system error where you're trying to reconcile the fact that Homestuck had some of the problems that you don't like in game updates. Is that what I'm picking up on?
Okay, I think you're kind of misunderstanding me. Like, here's the thing. I like most game updates. Like, I think most game updates are good, and I want to have them. What I worry about is the original version of the game being not preserved. Like, that's my concern because I like, uh, I would say like 90% of the changes that have been made to Minecraft. And
Yeah.
one thing that I love about Minecraft is in the Java edition of the launcher, you can go back to like almost every single version except like the really early versions that like Notch only gave to people on live streams and all this and on forums and stuff. But you can like see all of the like quote unquote official like mainstream releases of Minecraft, and that is brilliant. That's how every game should be to me. That's what I would want.
Okay, but Minecraft isn't really the most, isn't the biggest game out there. If your game is
Yeah, what?
humongous,
Yes, it
realistically, you
is.
can't.
Well, hold on.
By,
Minecraft
by
is the
that, I
biggest
didn't, I
game.
didn't, I didn't mean popular. I meant like in terms of file size and engine size and
Oh,
graphical assets and all that. So
never
like
mind. Yeah.
Minecraft is tiny in that sense. But like GTA 5 or whatever, you can't have playable versions of all the stuff that they had before. It just wouldn't be feasible to do. Do you
Yeah,
mean
because
like I get we agreed about this in the last episode, so I don't want to go over it too much, but like I do agree that we should have some kind of preservation, especially for online games that don't really exist in any physical form, like in discs or anything like that.
yeah.
They're just gone if the company should go out of business. Like For example, the game that I've been playing most this week, because there's been a giant update to it, has been Overwatch. Um, and it came out in 2015, and it's received so many updates at this point that the game really isn't what it was at the beginning at all. But
Yeah.
to me, that's actually a good thing. So one of the things they keep having to do in Overwatch is to increase the cost of ultimates. So like unlike other MOBA type games where ultimates are just on a cooldown, in Overwatch, you have to actually do stuff to get ultimates, like do damage, heal people, etc., etc. So over time, the player base has gotten so good at getting ultimates that they become just too much. Like you're supposed to get an ultimate every like 1.5 to 2 minutes, but because the player base now knows how to get ultimates, they get them every like 45 seconds to a minute. So they keep having to increase the cost of them to like balance out the game just because the players are changing. And to me, that's kind of like this cool back and forth between the developer and the players, where the developers are like looking at what the players are doing and listening to what the players are saying and being like, hey, this is cool. You asked for this change. We considered it. We were able to implement it in this way. So it kind of seems like a conversation back and forth to me with the developers and the players. But at the same time, if you really want to go back and play like for example, maybe the first version of Overwatch, which is nothing like what it is today, there's really no way to do that. So I get what you're saying in that sense.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You say file size, right? Here's what you can do. Like, you just do what Minecraft does. Just have a launcher, and just give people the option to download the old versions if they want. Like, or would that be too much storage space on the developer end? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it depends on how they do their work, I guess. Like if they're actively, for that to happen, they'd have to have like all these saved versions of their old version of the game, which I'm sure they have. But like, would it be good for their business if they just wanted to let people play the old game? Because, for example, with Overwatch, it's an online game with microtransactions and stuff like that. It's like, do you accept money from people who want to play an old version of the game? You split the player base. Some people are playing the old
Yeah.
version. Minecraft doesn't really have any of these problems because it's so like decentralized and kind of free form in the way that it approaches things.
Yeah, and Overwatch is a good example of community engagement because they've done a lot of stuff. Like I believe there was some kid who did a fan art and then they made it canon or something, right? Like they do stuff like that.
Yeah, that was so many years ago. I don't even remember at this point, but I think in 2016, they had like somebody made. I don't even remember. I don't even want to talk about it. But there was something like that. I remember vaguely. The game
Yeah,
came out in like 2015, so I don't remember half the stuff that's happened with it at this point.
yeah. Not to mention adding a bunch of characters like Doomfist and all the
Yeah,
that's the only
which
that's the only one I know.
nobody really even talks about this, but like League of Legends to me is the most unconsumer friendly business model that exists.
Yes.
Yeah, because the game is free, yes, but if you actually even want to play the game, you have to spend so much money that it's kind of nuts. Like
What?
you don't even have access to like most of the characters in the game if you just started playing today, which is kind of insane to me.
Yeah, here's the deceptive part about it too, because you could just say, "Oh, well, they start you off with some characters, and I can get a little bit of points and get characters in game relatively easy." But here's the thing: the deceptive thing that they do, right? Because on paper, it's like, "Oh, I can technically earn all the characters with in-game points." But here's the thing: um there's skill like rune pages that you have to buy only with in-game currency. You can't buy them with real money. And people say that this is a good thing because you can't buy power. But here's the thing. Because you are incentivized to use your in-game currency on these rune pages, it incentivizes people to just purchase the characters themselves with real world money. So it's a very sneaky, deceptive business model.
Yeah, whenever you have two necessary things that need to be bought with in-game currency, you're
Yeah.
basically making a zero-sum game because
Mm-hmm.
there's no you. your time is directly spent to get this. So if you have to do both with the same money and the same time that you're investing into this game, then it's going to be like, oh, I'm going to pick 3 characters that I know are good, get those and get the runes for them. And it discourages exploring the roster or like experimenting with other heroes because it actually costs you something to do that. Whereas
Yeah.
with a game like Overwatch, where there's an upfront cost and after that you pay nothing, um, no, as far as that, you can buy every single cosmetic in game with in game currency that you just get from loot boxes that you get by unlocking every level. And I've bought tons of stuff and I've gotten tons of cosmetics for free. I've never actually spent any money after the initial $40 or whatever it is I gave to the game in 2015, like 900 hours ago. Whereas in League of Legends, every time they put out a new champion, you have to buy them all over again. And if they're good, then you're at a competitive disadvantage if you don't, which nobody talks about either.
Yeah. But this is why just play Dota 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because every champ or what are the hero or whatever, every hero in that game is free up front, and all
The
the
game
stuff.
itself is free too.
The
There's
game is
that.
free. You can't. There's no runes or anything. I will say though, Valve did an awful thing with the game though. Here's what they did. They added like this weird like monthly subscription service to the game that you can use to like get new strategies and new builds, like new build strategies for the new heroes. And so one of the things that I always did with the game was on the Steam Workshop, you can people can upload like item builds that they have for each character, and you can like subscribe to that item build, and then that item build is implemented into your HUD, so you know which skills to do and which items to run. Well they added this premium subscription service to where they give you more information about what items do and stuff if you pay, and I didn't like that. That was a bad thing to do.
Well, we all know that Valve has gone down like a very steep ladder very quickly in the wrong
Yeah.
direction. Um,
Yep.
they've made some of the best games of all time. Like Portal and Portal 2 are probably some of my favorite games ever. But
Yeah, me
like
too.
the stuff they've been doing with CS:GO monetization and like they made CS:GO free to play
Yeah,
recently, and
that's
it's like
awful.
that game literally cost $9 for maybe like 7 years because hackers are so common in it that they had to make the game paid. Otherwise, it would just get overrun by hackers. And now they're just like, oh, let's just make it free because we need to get more money. Whereas with Dota 2, like you said, with this premium thing, this is such a like blatant cash grab, coupled with the fact that they made this stupid card game that nobody asked for. Um,
Dude, oh my god. That was the stupidest thing, yeah.
It's and like when they announce it to the audience, the video game industry is reaching this point where we're at like the saturation point where the PS4 is selling less than the PS2 did or whatever, or like the Wii did, or the console sales are not growing generation over generation. So it feels to me like we've kind of reached the peak of this whole video game thing, and it can only really go downhill from here.
Dude, well, yeah. I well,
Yeah.
you just broadened the topic so far. So now I have to like reconfigure what I was about to say cuz I was just about to go on Dota 2, but then you said PS2 and Wii, and I'm like, hold on, I have to re broaden everything. Um
Oh, well, before you do that, there's an interesting bit of news you might want to know. So, Sony and Microsoft recently announced that they're not going to allow developers to use loot boxes in their games without publishing the chances of getting stuff. Like, if there's a rare card that you get or whatever, you have to tell the players that they only have a 0.7% chance of getting it or whatever it is.
yeah.
So, it may not be as exploitative as it has been for the past 3 years because I watch a lot of these like gaming news videos just to know what's going on, and they say many times that the whole like 30% of EA's entire revenue comes from FIFA Ultimate Team, which is like when you open cards to get players
Oh
in
yeah.
FIFA, and it's like
That's really
30% up.
egregious.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
30% of their entire company is this. is microtransactions. So I feel like we're reaching some kind of like watershed moment where either it's going to get even worse, like GTA 5 had this update where they literally just put gambling in the game, like literal actual gambling.
Wait, with money that you can lose if your character dies, right?
Yeah, okay, so this is like they've had shark cards and stuff for like many, many years now. The game came out in 2013. So we're almost like 7 years deep into GTA 5, but they have had shark cards, which you can use to buy in game money for like since the beginning. And
Yeah.
that's been their major monetization, which is very, very successful. They make more money off of that than they did selling the game. And that game is one of the best selling games of all time.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So now with this casino update, you can buy shark cards and get in-game currency, which you then lose if you lose the game, like blackjack or literal gambling games like poker or whatever you're playing, roulette, whatever. So, for like, how do you even rationalize? To me, this is it's like people say false flag a lot. This is a false flag. Like someone went and said at Rockstar, they're like, this whole microtransaction thing has kind of gotten out of hand, right? And you know, GTA is kind of famous for the moral panic they caused back in the 90s where they were like, oh, in this game you can just run over people with your car and then shoot people. This is like the worst game ever. And that kind of like drove sales of the early GTAs. And now they're like redoing that. But the only way I see them, you know, the only reason that they would do something like this is to completely destroy gambling in games completely because they literally just put gambling in a game.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say about gambling? The house always wins. And it's never been truer now.
Yeah, and then so this is just all this calcified gaming news, you know, crystallizing out right now. So one of the things that the gambling industry actually got kind of pissed off that video games are doing this because the gambling industry is so heavily regulated. They have to like get independently tested by third parties to show that the odds that they claim are actually true, and they have to pay out a certain amount. They can't like pay out nothing. They have to pay out a certain amount every year, which is like a percentage of their winnings or whatever. They can't just rig the games to say that no one ever wins or anything like that. But with video games, you could basically do that. Like
Hmm.
there's no checking to verify that anyone is getting rare loot boxes at all or that the percentages are anywhere close to what's being said, even if the developer says that they are. There's no independent testing. Like if you told me when I went to your casino that you have a 1% chance of winning, why should I believe you? It's in your best interest to lie to me. So like
Yeah.
the gambling industry is getting offended by this. That's how bad it's gotten.
You never win with gambling. And I learned this I wouldn't say the hard way, but sort of the hard way because I have a gambling story, right? All right, you ready?
Yeah, let's
Okay,
go. Gigabyte gambling story. Let's go.
so when I was on a cruise, right, one time, on a cruise, if you're in international waters, you can gamble when you're 18. And so I was 18, and they had a casino on this cruise. Now, on this cruise, I saw my grandparents gambling, and I was like, this is like, oh, y'all shouldn't be gambling. This is so stupid. Like, why are you gambling? And lo and behold, what do you know? One of them asked me, hey, you just watch my seat for me, like press the slot machine for me using my money. And so I started doing it, and I was like, this is kind of fun. Pretty colors are showing up. I get distracted by that. I watch anime, and so this is and so I started gambling with my own money, and I actually came out ahead. But what I learned from that experience is that you never win when you gamble because it's such a addictive like thing that it's such a fallacy because like I think I won like $50. Like I came out ahead $50. And then I lost 20 of it, and then I was like, okay, I'm not doing this again because there's always that, well, if I won $50, maybe I could win more, and then that's how you lose that $50. Like it's such a addictive trap. It's such a fallacy. Like you shouldn't just never do it. And if you play scratch cards, you're literally just throwing your money away. Like there's no point in gambling.
Yeah, I don't know if this is really common where you live, but I feel like this has been shown in statistics, by the way. Um, They show that like the people who buy the most lottery tickets are the people from the lowest income neighborhoods. Have you
Oh
heard about
yeah,
this?
yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah,
They don't understand that it's probably the worst way you can spend your money. It's because you literally don't get anything for it at all,
yeah, you get
and
nothing.
they just gamble on the hope that some like for example, at my mom's workplace, they have a lottery ticket pool where they pool their money and buy lottery tickets once a week or once a month or something. And I was like, this is probably the worst idea you could ever have. But my mom's like, my mom doesn't really care. She's just doing it because everybody else is doing it. I'm like, these people don't make that much money. I don't know why they're spending it all on lottery tickets.
Yeah. You know, one argument that I've heard is that you know, when you're I think this is a might be the healthiest way to gamble, right? View it as if you can do this, view it as let's say I take $50 to a machine or a game to gamble. View it as I'm spending that money for an experience. I'm not spending that money to get ahead. I'm just gambling for the fun of gambling. You know what I mean? That is the healthiest. It's not that's not healthy, but it's the healthiest way to view it because if you view it like, "Oh, I'm going to make money," you're never going to do that.
Yeah, I think the late great Total Biscuit may have said exactly that word for word.
I think
He's
he
like,
did. That's where
I
I
think he
got it.
did. I think that's where you got it from.
Yeah.
Him and his wife used to go to Vegas all the time for like some gaming show or something, and when they'd go, they'd play video slots because the video slots have gotten so good these days. They're basically just like watching a light show, and you put
Mhm.
in like $1 and you get like 2 or 20 30 seconds of like all this light action, and then after that you will definitely not win most of the time, but you can kind of just see it like paying for, the experience, like you said. So
Yeah.
maybe that's one. I would say just don't gamble at all because I feel like
Yeah.
if you have any kind of addictive personality at all, it's probably way more harm than it's worth.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Yeah, you definitely don't gamble. Like I haven't gambled since that trip, and I never will. It's stupid. Never bought scratch off tickets. It's garbage. Don't gamble. Just don't do it.
Are there a lot of casinos where you live?
No, no.
Okay, because over here, they in Canada they have like first. I'm guessing it's like First Nations people. It's kind of like when they have Native American reservations with casinos on them in the U.S. I'm guessing. So
Yeah.
over here they have all these casinos which are run by like the First Nations people, and really that's the only place you can gamble. And one time, because Craigslist is such a weird place, I had to meet a dude at a casino to buy something from him.
Yeah.
So I spent like 30 minutes waiting for this guy in front of this casino. And every single person that I saw going into this casino was at least 65 years old. Like
Oh
half of
yeah,
them
yeah.
were in wheelchairs or with walkers or wearing those like really baggy old people shorts. I think you know what I'm talking about. And then I didn't even see like not even a single person under 40 go into this. They're all like ancient. And I'm like, why are you in a casino? And it was
Well,
at like 12 in the afternoon. So these people are like the
there's your
committed
answer.
hardcores. Exactly. I'm like, watch TV. It's cheaper than this and it's more entertaining too.
Okay, if you're a boomer with a lot of disposable income and if you're going to a casino at 12 in the daytime, then yeah, that's who you're going to see, like boomers with a ton of income who just want to gamble because it's such an it's such an easy like entertainment thing. It's like it requires no thought, but pretty colors just come down, and you're like, "Oh, maybe I could win big." It's such a like rat in the lab type of like Skinner box like psychological manipulation, like you know.
Yeah, it's literally a Skinner box, by the way.
Yeah, it
Which is
is.
what
Yeah.
these video game things are too. Because if you've seen it, like I'm pretty fond of Overwatch's business model. I feel like it takes a good balance between corporate exploitation and giving the customers what they want. But they're pretty guilty of this too. Is when you click open on the loot box, there's like a
Oh
30
yeah.
second animation that plays with all these colors and sounds and stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
like, there's really no reason to have this in there other than to incentivize people to buy this.
Exactly. Yeah. No, because it's fun to look at. Because what I used to watch my friend like I used to like be at his house while he was playing Overwatch on his Xbox, And like sometimes I would get bored watching him, but whenever he opened up the loot box, it was like cha-ching, and all the like little like dials fall to the ground, and it shows holograms of all the items, and it's like so pretty.
Yeah, and I mean, if you search on YouTube, there are like videos with millions of views of people
Yeah,
just
of people
spending
opening them.
hours and hours just opening loot box. I mean, I think that's probably a better way to scratch the itch than doing it yourself because it costs you no money to
Yeah,
do that.
I've watched a lot of those videos for CS:GO crates too, because that's literally like a slot machine. In fact, there's a website that just simulates CS:GO crate opening. Did you know this?
That simulates it.
Yeah, so
I knew there was a game called Loot Box Simulator. That there was a game on Steam that did this. I didn't know there was a website for it.
there's a website that is just the CS:GO like loot crate thing, but you just do it without spending money. So you could just do it, and then it shows what weapon you win, but nothing happens because you're not in CS:GO. You're just on this website. So if you just want to scratch that itch for no money, you just do that.
And CS:GO is even more sketchy because that you can actually trade those skins for real money. So you can't even say
Yeah,
it's only in-game items because some of these
dude,
skins cost like thousands of dollars.
dude, I knew. Okay, there was this kid. Okay, so back in my Dota days, I have like 500 something hours in Dota, by the way. So
Oh
back when
damn!
I,
So
yeah,
you are an elite gamer. You're an elite gamer. I knew it.
I'm a pretty elite gamer. I used to play Counter Strike, Dota, and TF2 all the time. But anyways, so back when I played Dota constantly, like it was a problem. It was a problem. But back when I played Dota, not in terms of money, I actually only spent like $40 in that game total, which is surprising. But
Some of those cosmetics, the community made cosmetics, are so good. Like they're way better than anything I've seen any company come up with.
yeah,
Legit, really good cosmetic items in that game.
there are. But back when I played Dota, there was this kid that I played Dota with. These two kids I played Dota with were like not my friends. Like it was weird. Like they barely wanted to talk to me other than to play Dota, and I didn't realize that until I was out of the game, basically. But anyways, so one of the kids, his name's Trevor. He's this really like genius kid, really socially awkward. I think that's one of the problems why he like never wanted to talk to me, because he was super socially awkward, like even more than me. But one of the things that he did, one of his endeavor, he's like a furry with a Lamborghini now, by the way. Like I looked
What?
at pictures on Steam. Yeah, like it's. Anyways, I think he's like rich now or something. But one of
Or it's
his
Photoshop. Yo, it's
no, it's
Photoshop.
it's not photo. Like
How do you
he's
know?
really furry. Like
Okay,
in the fursuit, he was with the Lamborghini.
that screams Photoshop to me. Or it's just like a Google image search picture.
You want to? Okay. Anyway, it could be. I don't know. But
I love how
anyways,
you just assume that he got a Lamborghini. Like, what are the chances of this like what 19-year-old kid being a furry with the Lamborghini? This is a troll
no,
picture.
no, because he was talking about like how he saved up to get the fursuit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
he bought a Lamborghini with cash, but he saved up to get the fursuit. That makes sense.
Anyways, whatever. That's not important to the story. What's
Okay.
important is he ran this CS:GO crate operation where like he would like look, because it's literally a stock market. Like he would look at market trends and he made money like back before Valve. Back before, do you know the huge scandal that made Valve like kind of regulate this, where like T Martin and
Yeah, they
whatever?
basically
Yeah,
like they had their own betting site and then they like
yeah.
faked like you got more stuff than you actually got. Yeah.
So back before Valve like semi-regulated this, there was a way to get CS:GO drops and sell them, like exchange them and sell them for real money on your credit card or whatever. And he did that, and he made like hundreds of dollars doing this, like
Yeah.
getting yeah.
Hustlers are gonna hustle no matter where they are. Like I
Oh
used to sell
yeah,
gum in middle school. Like this is something you do.
yeah. Which and I knew another kid named Jane. I don't. No, I won't say it. Never mind. I won't say his full name, but
Don't say his full name,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. Jeremy. We'll say that his name was Jeremy. There you go.
Okay.
Anyways, so he bought like like I think it was like actually 200 CS:GO crates, thinking they would be valuable, and they actually were. They were worth more than what he bought them. But like, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna sell these like and make more money." But then he was like, "Oh, I'm too lazy to click sell on every one of them, so I'll just leave them in my inventory like an idiot." But
Oh
yeah,
my god.
Yeah, but
Oh my god, that
whatever.
triggers me to
It
no
it sh-
end.
it really triggered me because it also triggered me that like so I would follow like game deals because I was on a bunch of Reddit giveaway sites, Steam giveaway. I was on this weird Steam giveaway thing where if you wrote the best poem, they would give you a free Steam game. That's how I got Skyrim on Steam, by the way. Weird story. But yeah, so I was on a bunch of giveaways and I followed like free game. I still follow free game deals on Twitter, and so I would
I feel like every teenager does this. If you don't
yeah,
have money, you need games, right?
yeah. So I would tell him that Uplay and like all of these other like non-Steam things were like doing free game giveaways so where you could just get free games because Uplay had this Ubisoft like 30th anniversary where they I still have it. I still have like I think the first Tomb Raider, the first what's that game called? Monkeys something. They're remaking it through Kickstarter. What's that game called? Perfect
Monkey
Dark.
Island?
No, not
I don't
Monkey
know.
Island. Perfect Dark or not Perfect Dark. What's that game? That really niche game. What's that game? I'm freaking
Myst?
out now.
I don't
Not
really know what you're
Mist.
talking about.
It's in that game. It's in that camp though. You're getting to it.
Okay,
What's that game?
let's just
What's
assume that it's some really old game. How about that?
yeah? My cat is meowing. I'm probably gonna have to let him out after the story. But
Are you
they're giving
having a
away.
seizure or something?
No, I'm just
Okay.
freaking out. So Uplay was giving away blah 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 Tomb Raider blah blah, and he didn't want to download it because it was Uplay, and I like forced him to download it. But
This is how I feel about people complaining about the Epic Game Store. It's like, yeah, they're doing some shady stuff, but not shady. They're just trying to force their way onto the scene with the insane amount of money that they have from Fortnite.
yeah,
But I would have literally, I don't care if Satan started a game store. I would prefer that to having no
yeah.
competition for Steam because Steam is such a piece of garbage.
Also, if you're not buying Borderlands 3 on Epic just because it's on Epic, you are literally retarded. And I gotta let my cat out, so hold on.
Yeah, so while we listen to Jig, let his cat out. Um, and first of all, no one should be even supporting Steam or Epic Game Store. We should all be supporting good old games because that's the only place where you can even buy games DRM free anymore, which no one really seems to care about.
I'm back. So
So I was
yes,
talking about GOG, you know, good old games.
yeah,
They have DRM free games.
DRM free, yeah,
Yeah, and it was like in the early 2000s, just buying a CD meant that you got a game DRM free and you could just play it on your computer without having to
yeah,
be online. But now Steam is always online and people don't even give a crap that it's always online, even though when the
yeah,
Xbox One was first announced and they said it was going to have always online DRM, people freaked the fuck out, but now the everything has always online DRM and it doesn't really matter or no one seems to care at all. Whenever a game comes out on GOG, I always get that version because, first of all, you don't have to launch Steam to play it. You can just launch it from your Windows launcher and it works way faster. You don't have to wait for Steam updates. The game has updates that you can download and install if you want to, which is really big because there are a couple games which don't really get that many updates, but when they do get updates, the developer does something weird with them. Like for
mm,
example, there was this game called like Training Bot or like Aim Hero or something like that. And this guy ruined it by putting damage numbers into it, and there was no way to turn the damage numbers off. So the only way to play the game without damage numbers was to pirate it because it was on Steam. But if it
yeah.
had been on GOG, you could have just kept the version without that, and they don't ask you to update ever, and you don't even have to download their software or whatever. You can just install it on your computer straight up.
Yeah, as much as I want to be like a boomer complaining about game updates and how games have become a service, I am completely zoomer, and basically all my games are on Steam. And I acknowledge that this is a problem, but you know what? Whatever.
As soon as the internet goes out, you know, you're not going to get any game updates. And you can still play games offline with Steam, but like isn't there a time limit where you have to like check back online or it'll deactivate your games or something?
I don't know how that works. I'm very unclear on that actually because like I've had the power or the internet go out while I was playing a game, and I was just playing the game for like hours. But then sometimes I can't launch it. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I feel like I think it goes from a game to game basis. I think some games need you to. It depends. Like, there's this type of DRM called like de novo or something, which is
Hmm.
always online, and it doesn't really help. It's like this super hardcore type DRM that ruins the performance of the game on computers, and is
Yes,
always online, but it gets cracked anyway within like a week, so it doesn't really help with anti piracy stuff.
this was a big deal with Sonic Mania, a game that literally no human being should have trouble running. A potato PC can run it because it's like a retro style
Yeah.
revival of the old
For
Sonic
those of
games.
you who don't know, Sonic Mania literally just looks like a Sonic game from the
Yeah,
90s.
it's beautiful, by the way. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm not saying the game looks bad, but there's no reason you
Yeah,
shouldn't be able. You should be able to run it on your
yeah,
phone.
but de novo whatever made the game run bad. So yeah, for the first week, but the developers actually removed it, I believe.
Yeah, because it got cracked anyway, so there's no point in
Yeah,
having it anymore. This
it's
happened with
stupid.
so many games at this point that de novo actually it's actually pretty expensive too. Like, you're actually using part of your budget to pay for this stupid DRM that no one likes. The players don't like it. The developers don't like it because they work so hard to improve the performance of the game, only to have it get shoved down the toilet by this stupid DRM that they
It's
also
so
then have to
dumb.
pay for.
Yeah, and so what I like about American comics though is the culture of it, because whenever I hear someone talk about American comics, like Endless Justice panel cast, I always want to get into them.
Explain this panel cast to me because I have no idea what it is. What is that?
So the panel cast is Endless Jess. He goes over all the comics that he read that week, but he does it in such a hilarious way. And he started I don't think the cast goes on anymore. It doesn't, but for the later episodes he started having this girl who runs a like comic company, a selling company, comic shop, but she runs like four comic shops, and he started having her on there, and she also has really interesting comic opinions, so it's really cool.
I feel like he's the last of this generation of like he's like a boomer in the body of a millennial, or he's just like a really conceited millennial. Like, he's all about like physical games,
Yeah,
comics, wrestling. Like, this is the like I don't not stereotype, but I'd say these are maybe three of the most popular activities for millennials to have.
I
Whereas
can't get
nowadays it's Fortnite, um, TikTok, and name one more thing just to complete like the rule of three.
Instagram. I don't.
Yeah, sure, Instagram. Let's go with Instagram.
What
But I
were we
feel like
talking about? Hold
even the
on.
young kids are not on Instagram. I feel like they're only on TikTok. TikTok, which is by the way a Chinese company. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Ooh, scary. Who cares? I don't know.
Oh yeah, this is another thing which like I'm all about like privacy and like not having your data out in the world and all that shit. I
Too
don't have a
bad.
yeah, exactly. But the point is the new generation does not give two shits about that because
Cause
they,
you
they,
can't.
yeah, they live in like this post Equifax world where literally half the population of the US had their social security number just put out there on the internet. So what is the point of even pretending to have privacy if literally half of all people have all their information out there?
Do you say you say this new generation? You are a part of this new. Like there is no. You
Yeah.
can't escape this. This is like. It doesn't matter what VPNs you install. Nothing matters. Like you can't escape it. This is how the world is now.
Yeah, for some reason I started using Firefox instead of Chrome on the desktop, but I still use Chrome on my phone, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Firefox on the phone is just really bad. Otherwise, I would use it. Uh, I try to do my little stuff, but like I don't pay for a VPN or anything like that. Like, VPNs are good, but they lower your internet speed, so like I'm not gonna do that. They increase your game ping. So at the end of the day, like there's you kind of just have to accept that we live in this world that's kind of fucked in terms of privacy and your information being out there.
Yeah, I'm trying
And that
to.
if you're on TikTok, that means the Chinese government is training their facial recognition AIs with pictures of your kids. Just throwing that out there.
Like, but here's the thing, like, I can't bring myself to care because it's just inevitable. Like, okay, maybe I sound like a boomer here, but like,
No,
There's
wait,
no.
that's the opposite of boomer. You're the opposite of
Oh,
boomer because boomers are all about like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You can change the world if you want to. You're a straight up doomer.
yeah, I am. Yeah, exactly. I'm the doomer here because like what can you do? Like there like as long as we every system in place incentivizes this, like there's no what can you do, you know? I don't.
I feel like if anything, the generation after Gen Z is going to be the one that fixes it because that's usually how it works. Like in the very early 1900s to the late 1800s, there was such gross exploitation of workers and all this stuff. And then like after World War II, there were unions and like workers' rights and all that stuff. And then that got fucked up by like the 60s, 70s, 80s, like Reagan
Yeah.
era taxation, destroying labor unions, all that stuff. And then now we're in like this post Reagan phase where we don't really know what to do, and technology, in terms of the internet, if nothing else, has changed things to such a degree where we don't really know what we're supposed to do or where we're supposed to go. But for people after us, like maybe a kid was born in the 2020s, for them, this technology is just a reality, and they'll know the eventual consequences of what end up happening, and they'll be able to take action with
Yeah.
like some positive stuff at least.
Yeah. Let me break this down, right? So if I said to myself, I don't want any of my data, any of my information in the hands of any company, and I want to be completely private. What would I have to do to achieve that means? Well, first of all, this podcast literally couldn't exist because right now we are putting all our information into Discord servers. They probably know everything about us at this point. So right off
Wait,
the
are you
bat,
are you saying that Discord is the great big bad that we should be fighting against?
it's one of them. No, I'm just
I really
hold
feel
on,
like because you
hold on,
don't
hold
really
on,
have to give Discord any personal information.
hold on. No, I'm doing is I'm trying to build up a big picture. So
Okay.
what I would have to do is let's say I wanted none of my data recorded, I would have to stop using Discord. This podcast wouldn't exist. I'd have to turn off my computer. None of my art would exist. I'd have to like, and if I
You
wanted to
you wouldn't have
see,
to turn off your computer. There's nothing about your computer intrinsically that sends data to anyone. Are you talking about the
well,
internet?
the internet, yeah, that's what I would have to stop using Google basically. Like,
Yeah. For I would have started with the email that you sign up to Discord with is a
yeah,
Google email, probably, unless you're a boomer with the Yahoo email. You have a Google email like every normal person on the planet, which means Google reads all of your emails and they know everything about you. So
okay,
realistically, you could host your own email server if you really wanted to.
but even
Um,
then, listen, if we drill down to the bedrock, I can't. Let's say like I couldn't like I have to, okay. Let's say I move to another country or another state. What do I have to do? I have to pull out my debit card, stick it in a machine to get some money out. There's no way for your data to not be in the hands of everybody.
Okay, just since I'm way deeper down this rabbit hole than you, let me just go over the steps of what you would need to do to live a completely off the grid online life. Okay, so here we
Okay.
go. You'd have to basically do all of your transactions in cash, which, lucky you, you live in the US, which is one of the few places in the world where cash is still widely accepted as remuneration. In a lot of European countries, you can't even pay with cash if you wanted to. You have to use a card. So that's untraceable cash. That's fine. Use cash for everything. You'd have to live in a place where, or some kind of like small town where there really isn't any kind of facial recognition or like cameras that read your license plate number or anything like that, which is still achievable in this day and age. How much longer that will be true, we don't know. You'd have to, of course, not use any kind of Google product, Facebook product. You can't really have any of those. You'd have to delete those. Um, I would say companies like Discord are fine. You're probably fine using a Discord because they're not really bought by anyone yet, and it doesn't look like they're going to be bought by anyone anytime soon. Um, if you're uncomfortable with having your voice recognition data out there, then that might be a problem, but I don't think that's really a problem as of
Not
right
to
now with
mention,
Discord.
not to mention they store every word that you type. But continue.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's up to your discretion whether you want to talk about your kinks and fetishes and all that on Discord and
which
give
I
them all that
do
information.
regularly. So I
Yeah.
do
So,
regularly.
stay
So
tuned for the Gigabyte Kink cast, which is coming next month
yep,
to celebrate this September. No, nothing. I didn't say anything. So, there's that. Then, technically, you could still host your own website. I recently got into reading about how you can make your own web server. You can technically do that. There, you can't really buy a domain name with cash. I suppose you could get someone to buy it for you and just pay them monthly. That's possible. It'd have to be like a random stranger though. Otherwise, they'd search your known acquaintances and then find you that way. You can't use a smartphone at all in any degree because Android is basically just an elaborate spying tool. You'd
yep,
have to use a flip phone or something like that, or just take a laptop with you everywhere to use Instagram and whatnot.
yeah. Get your Breaking Bad Hello Kitty smartphone or split phone.
Exactly, burner phones.
Yeah.
There's literally no operating system that you can run. There's like no version of Android that doesn't spy on you.
So
There,
in
even though Android is open source, like there might be like privacy centric versions of Android, but that's kind of like an oxymoron because Android is still run by Google, and if you want to use their Play Store, you have to install all their apps.
yeah.
There's like a whole another level you can go where you only install apps through APKs and stuff like that, but then those companies are watching you. It's very difficult.
But the point is nobody wants to do any of this. I would not talk to a person who did any of this. We choose to have our data like breached basically. Like we are contributing to it. Like we want this. So there's no
I don't.
escape.
It's just kind of like this is kind of like if a really big guy came and said, "Hey, I really want to fuck you. Please let me." It's like, yes, you chose to, but did you really have any option in like if you don't have a smartphone in this day and age, you're kind of a
Okay.
weirdo. I don't even
But
have a phone plan and I'm a weirdo. So,
yeah, okay, but like okay, let's extend that analogy, right? What if there was a neighborhood where I knew this guy was going to be and I went in there knowing that he would be there? Like society took the steps for this to happen. You see what I
yeah, but
mean?
what you're talking about is rape culture. It's like it's not okay just cuz you went there for him to rape you. In the same way
Okay.
that it's not okay for just because you exist on this planet for Google to steal your information or whatever.
All right, yeah. I didn't think that through. You're right. That was really that was really
That was
bad
really
analogy.
problematic.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
whatever. Continue.
Sorry for that, but oh my god. No, you're right. That was really bad, but whatever. I don't
I mean,
care.
you could make
You,
another analogy if you
okay,
want to. The point is, I'm saying that
get
there
my
isn't as
point
much
though.
choice as people say. Like Google is virtually a monopoly, and Apple is no better than Google. So you're choosing between the devil or the deep blue sea at that point.
But do you see like kind of my point? Like everybody sort of collectively went in this direction. Sort of like you know what I mean?
But
Like
it's not like what everybody decided to go keto. By the way, the whole keto phenomenon is something we should discuss on a podcast at some point. It's like this was not an organic transformation. Like when
wait,
the
how is it not?
because there are giant, huge companies telling you what to do, and people just do it. If someone's telling you what to do and you do it, it's not the same as an organic decision to choose to do that.
Yeah, you're
Does that make
probably right.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, but like I guess I'm thinking. Okay, I guess I'm thinking about this like way farther back. Like I'm thinking about this like
Are
people
you saying that people chose this because we wanted fire instead of no fire? Is that where you're coming from?
kind of yeah, like in a way. Like
Uh, there's so many. There's like, I have a philosophical bend. So at this point, I'm like, there's so many philosophers that have talked about how technology once used to be a force for good, like objective good, but now it's some like weird utilitarian good, which is like kind of good, but also it serves some people more than it serves others. Like, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg has a smartphone. So what does that tell you about maybe one of the architects of the information apocalypse that we live in now, he doesn't even want to participate in it. I mean, he has the
Yeah.
same choice that you do, and he knows a lot more about it than you or I do. So I feel like that should tell you more about the whole smartphone thing than anything else.
I'm waiting for that guy to get like for it to come out that he got assassinated or something.
There's no way he gets assassinated. If anything, he's going to assassinate some people.
Or
Um,
I should say that. Yeah. That no, but you wouldn't hear about it because he would cover it up. I feel like.
if first, okay, so I don't know how much of this you know, but I'm super deep into this mega corporation rabbit hole. So Facebook has been responsible for multiple genocides in multiple countries.
Really?
Yeah. So a lot of the time, like Facebook owns WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is like, if you're like in the U.S., no one uses WhatsApp at all. If you know anyone from any country other than the U.S., chances are they use WhatsApp a lot. And as you know, there are more people outside the U.S. than there are people in it. As much as people would like to believe the opposite, that's not true. Um, so WhatsApp is there was like this huge, and one of the biggest things is like they have all these giant group chats with like hundreds of people, if not thousands of people in WhatsApp. So they had like this huge misinformation thing in India with WhatsApp where they were sending like all this weird, like it was like basically like a fake video showing a Muslim like kidnapping a girl or something, and then it was like it's fake, but then people like just kept forwarding it again and again, and it incited like all this anti-Muslim violence all over the country, which led to like tens and hundreds of people being killed or beaten to death. And then in Myanmar, there was a similar thing against another ethnic minority where they were shown as being like doing something that they don't do at all. And then that literally caused a genocide, which now is a huge problem in Myanmar.
Wait. So okay. So why was this fake video sent in the first place? Like, what's the like?
It's like this would be the American like parallel. It's like if your friend, or it's like if a boomer shared a meme of like a Mexican beating up someone, and they're like, "Oh look, I knew they were all killers and rapists or whatever," like just supporting that Trump ideology, and then like on that people took action believing that the video was real against
Well,
Mexicans to
okay.
like beat them up.
Well, but how? But what I'm saying is like, who created this and how did this get into circulation? Like, do we know that?
Bad people, like people who already have it could have been like foreign actors for all we know. Nothing is really safe in this world anymore. We don't know if it was some other country trying to cause instability by provoking already existing like societal tensions. Nothing is for certain.
So they specifically sent it to India, right? Specifically, or
It was as far as I know, it was like just like it was like one of those chain emails that the people used to send back in the day. If a chain email was designed to cause racial violence
oh
or
my god.
sectarian violence. Yeah, exactly. And Facebook just allowed this to happen for like months and months until there was a public outcry, and then they like clamped down and stopped it. Similar to the genocide in Myanmar, they like just allowed it to happen for I think more than a year. There were thousands of people getting killed, and then they stepped in and they like took steps to stop this kind of fake meme spreading from going on. So Facebook is already has a lot of blood on their hands already. If that's what you're worried about.
So what? Why do you think Facebook waited a month and allowed the genocide to happen? Like, what is their motive? Or do
Well, it's primarily because they don't really have any staff in Myanmar. Like they have barely any people who in, work in that country, and they don't have any communication between the satellite offices in other countries and their main office. So they basically didn't even communicate that it was happening, or they didn't have anybody who spoke the language, so they
hmm.
couldn't translate to see what was happening. They basically just ignored it while then, like obviously selling lots of ads in Myanmar and like making money off of this at the same time, but they took no responsibility for it at the end of the day.
So I think there's something insidious going on here because I also heard at one point that Facebook had this initiative, right, where they were trying to quote unquote give the internet to like third world or is that the right term? Third world nations.
Yeah, I think third world countries is fine. I don't think
Yeah,
there's anything wrong with that.
but they're the
Okay,
ones
so
without power and stuff, right? Or am I wrong?
the story with that is that they wanted to give the internet to people who didn't have the internet, but the catch was they wanted to give them Facebook's version of the internet.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if
that's
you
what I was
remember
about.
AOL
Yeah,
from back in the day, you could only go to AOL and like a few pages that they approved. Basically, they
yeah.
wanted to make it so that their homepage would have been Facebook,
Hmm.
and the only sites they would get would have been like sites that Facebook either owned or did a licensing deal with Facebook to get access to these people.
Yeah.
And one of the main places they tried to push this again was India, but the Indian government was like, "Lol, no, you're not doing this," and they shut them down. But I think in a few places they did try it for some time until those governments caught up to what they were doing too.
So the government shut that down.
The government didn't allow them to do it. They're like, "No, you can't do that. You can give people free internet as long as it's unhindered and you can they can access whatever they want. Then it's fine. We'll allow that, but we're not going to allow you to basically just monopolize the internet access of maybe hundreds of millions of people."
Okay, that makes sense. That's crazy.
How I'm sorry I depressed you.
No, it's
This is
fine.
this is why I don't talk about this with people because it just ends up depressing people at the end of the day.
No, it's really good. Like, it's really good to know. Well, okay, the event's not good, but the discussion is good.
I think Google is doing something similar right now at the moment, but without like the hindered access part. They're just doing the free internet part with something called Project Loon, where they're like
Hmm.
deploying internet from like hot air balloons, basically like high altitude hot air balloons.
Huh.
So there's
That's
that.
interesting.
It's
And there's
actually
Google
one of the
Fiber.
cooler things about like all the stuff that people are doing in undeveloped places in the world where they don't really have a power grid or anything like that is that they're kind of just skipping to the next level of technology. Like solar panels are very good in places where you don't have power grids because you can just have one array of solar panels basically run all the electricity for a village. Like that's enough for boiling water, light bulbs, all that kind of stuff. But if you don't have a power grid, like the initial upfront cost to set up a power grid is insanely high. So that's why these places have never had electricity, even to current year. But if you just have solar panels, which there are some charities that go around giving solar panels to people, they can basically get all the stuff that they need. And if they get internet too, through from hot air balloons or wherever it is, they're going to go straight from like the 1890s to 2020, skipping everything that came in between.
That's really cool, actually. And then maybe like America and Canada and the UK or whatever places that are more developed. Maybe they'll see, hey, these other places are using solar energy. Maybe we should use more of it, and the whole world grows.
Yeah, that's the optimistic way to look at things. I feel like the more
Maybe,
pragmatic way of looking at things is we just demonize what they're doing and be like, "Oh, they're using so much fossil fuel." It's like, "Yeah, but there are four times as many people over there as there are over here, and they're not
yeah.
even using the same amount per capita or whatever." It's like there's been a lot of movement in that direction over the past couple of years is where they're like the developing world really needs to check its, you know, like fossil fuel usage. It was like, yeah, but you use air conditioning, and that has way more energy use than five people who need a light bulb or whatever.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of manipulation going on because you ever think about how when you look at a map, like America's bigger than Africa? Isn't that a little weird?
It's almost like the world is flat.
No, well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like
I'm just messing with you.
they're trying to make America or or these other nations look bigger. Well, why is that? Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, this American exceptionalism, I feel, is finally going to come to an end this century because it doesn't seem like America's all that exceptional anymore. And a lot of work has been put into like demonizing the Chinese development of technology, which reminds me, it's like eerily similar to what they were doing with the Red Scare back in the day, where they just
Yeah,
showed communists as like basically evil people, but like they had scientific achievements too. And at the end of the day, their social system didn't work out because it was basically a dictatorship, but like they weren't evil. They weren't doing anything evil. Like the people in the country weren't doing anything evil. The leadership was. That's something completely different. But it's like in China, they've kind of created this like system where they encourage innovation, and they don't really have copyright laws or patent laws or anything like that. And they encourage like out innovating your competition over like creating a like hegemonic preservation of the profit incentive where you get to basically make money. You're guaranteed to make money through having a 20-year patent on something. Whereas there, if you make something and you put it out in the market, everybody knows what you made. They can take it apart and figure out how it works, and they can make the same thing too, which means you have to move on to the next thing, which
Hmm.
encourages like the pace of innovation. And I'm going on such a long rant. It's okay.
Rather than patents stifling innovation because, oh, you can't use the thing that I used because I have the patent on it.
Yeah, which I mean, anybody who makes videos on YouTube will relate to this in terms of copyright, because you get copyright struck for stuff that
Yeah.
like nobody owns or is in the public domain or something stupid like that. But in this sense, the American approach to this has been to just demonize this approach completely without even considering it, because a lot of like I don't want to paint people with a broad brush, but like I would say Republicans in the U.S. are all about like the free market and like free capitalism, no regulations. What's more free capitalism than not having patents or like actual competition? So it seems like they represent one thing on one side, but if someone else is doing it, they're like, oh, they're stealing from us, which was the case initially. The Chinese government was all about like, let's try to copy what the US has been doing. But now it seems like they've reached a point where they're just trying to make their own stuff. And a lot of the stuff that's successful in China is not really successful in the US. I don't know how much you know about this app called WeChat.
No, what is that?
So WeChat is like, if it's like a combination of pretty much every major app you can think of. It's like if WhatsApp and Google Pay and like Amazon had a baby, you can like buy stuff on there, and most of the way they pay with stuff is by using QR codes in WeChat. And it's like this all-in-one kind of like solution to talk to people, send money to people, buy stuff, sent to people, all this weird stuff that really doesn't have any analog in the US. Like, what are you going to compare it to, really? And companies from the West haven't really had that much success in penetrating China because they're like the way that they do business is different. Like they're completely Western companies. They don't really have as much attention to the Chinese market as they probably should, given how many people live there and how much money they have now. And you see a lot of like Western companies failing when they move to China. And it's like two distinctly separate ecosystems which go about doing things differently. And for now, they're at having like this weird kind of trade war because Trump is stupid.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know what you're talking about. Um, a lot
That's
of this
okay.
has been going. A lot of this has been going on over my
We'll
head
just
for
call
like an
this
hour.
Kaido's geopolitical rant episode. That's fine. I'm
Yeah,
fine with
but
that.
well, no, I do, but I don't. Like I get what you're saying, but I don't have enough information to where I feel like I would it would warrant me chiming in without me sounding ignorant, which I may have already done, but I want
No,
to
I
not
don't
do
think you
that.
said anything ignorant, which I feel like even I don't have enough information. I mean, I'm super plugged into this, but I feel like I've missed a bunch of stuff too with, and we're completely alienating Matt at this point, who's going to be listening back to this episode and going like, I thought we were talking about games.
Well, I wanted to talk about comics, but I feel like every time I bring it up, it goes into like capitalism and all this stuff.
Which is the answer to why you can't read all the comics, is because like
Exactly. There we go. Exactly. Capitalistic interest. There we go.
so can we talk about how digital comics cost the same as physical comics?
Yeah, what's up with that? They should cost nothing and you should pirate them off.
I don't know about that, but they definitely shouldn't cost the same, because it costs you nothing to make this PDF and send it to me or whatever.
Yeah, it's almost like you shouldn't buy it. You should just pirate it.
I don't know if I advocate that. If you support something,
I
definitely give some money to it, like just tape $1 to an envelope and mail it to them. But, otherwise, how are we going to get money into to creators that we like?
hmm,
I feel like they would
well,
sell a
you
lot more
hold on.
comics if they just
Hold on.
made it cheaper to buy comics on Comixology or whatever it was. Because I think
Aren't
they're like
we
$6 an issue, which is kind of nuts.
yeah, aren't we by sending them money? All right, this is where it's going to get a little bit Ben Saint-ish maybe, but just bear with me. Aren't we by sending them money in turn supporting their exploitative labor practices that they do upon
Comics?
these creators? Yeah.
I feel like manga's more exploitative than comics.
Well, I'm not. I'm talking about comics right now because don't they? Aren't they really exploitative to these comic creators? Like, don't they make them like draw comics on their deathbed and don't provide? Like, didn't that literally just happen?
I'm not really clued in on this, so if you want to fill me in on the malpractice of labor in comic industry, I would take that.
Well, so so okay, so basically, from what I understand, from my vague understanding, what happens is you create a comic character. Now the company owns that character. You don't like so okay, so this happened with the creator of Rocket Raccoon, right? The dude was dying of cancer and he was drawing for one of the new Avengers things. And he was still doing work while he was in the hospital bed. Like there's a picture he posted to Twitter of him like inking with a Wacom tablet in a hospital bed. This is the dude that created I believe this is the same dude that created Rocket Raccoon. And he recently died of cancer, and Marvel didn't like give him like he basically received none of the compensation. They're making these millions of dollars, right, having this character in their movies, and he receives none of it even though he's the creator. They just take the characters that these people make and then just put them on the big screen. They don't get there's no royalties. It's just like outsourced basically commission work.
Yeah, what, like I get what you're saying with this, but isn't it so much worse for manga? Because think of like Naruto, for example. Like Kishimoto didn't does not own those characters. They're owned by Shonen Jump or Shueisha or whoever runs it, right?
Yeah.
So when they make a movie or when they sell a Naruto plush, he doesn't really get any points on the back end for that because when he started, he was a penniless artist guy who didn't really have the leverage to negotiate royalties. But now he's like this super successful dude who probably, if he wanted to, could own his own copyright for the work that he makes. But Samurai 8 or whatever it's called is not going to be as popular as Naruto for sure.
Yeah.
So they're making probably billions of dollars, maybe like $1 billion off of all the Naruto stuff that they've done. And he doesn't own any of that because he at the beginning was just like a guy who wanted to put his comics in a book. Um, I feel like with Western comics, they've kind of largely solved this problem by just not by solved. I mean, from the company perspective, by not having new characters really. Because if you're making Spider-Man, you don't really have any claim to that character. You're just writing stories for him.
Well, okay, you could look at it as being better, but I mean, isn't it also kind of worse because they're making like the dude who like Rocket Raccoon was created like but there are new characters being made. Like they're making like way more money than anime makes. So isn't it worse? Like off these characters in movies and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not like trying to just like diminish the suffering of comic artists in the West, but I do feel like there are more options for them. This is only a problem because we're comparing. Because otherwise, I would totally sympathize with what you're saying. But there are so many like indie comic labels and like creator-owned comic publishing places that do give better cuts and like royalties and things like that, paid vacation, things like that to creators, where you really don't have anything like that in Japan.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe we should just say artists are exploited as a whole, because I know that CGI artists are also kind of overworked in this way.
Yeah, they are. Well, I guess okay. Dang it! I just wanted to talk about comics. Now we're talking about like how capitalism has ruined the world.
Oh boy, it's just this all over again. Because at some point in the 1900s, it was like, well, you should just be glad that you're getting paid at all to do this work, and it's like, you should be glad that you can just draw for a living. But I think we've reached a point in society where we're past that, and we're not like, oh, you get to draw for a living, shut up and take your $15 an hour or whatever, tiny amount of remuneration they get. We're now to a point where people can talk about what they think they deserve instead of just what they'd accept.
Yeah, because you probably realistically you're probably doing way more work being a comic artist than most people.
For sure. And this is
Yeah,
a problem in like every single creative industry. Like, you could be making 80, $90,000 a year, working 40 hours a week, not even trying at all in a lot of industries. But if you're an artist who works for a living, you're going to be grinding away for your entire life if you want to make a decent amount of money.
it's crazy. Yeah.
And
Um.
CGI artists have it particularly bad because they're not overtime employees, they're salaried, and all the production house that they work for gets paid upfront for all the work that they do. So they don't get any more money if they need retakes, or like for this Sonic movie, for example, when they had to redo him doing all this stuff. They were initially just planning to get the people who made the movie to like redo all of the CGI in the movie over like 5 or 6 months, which is kind of insane. And the people protested so bad. They're like, no, we don't want you to exploit the CGI workers just because you made a really shitty decision with this character.
Yeah.
So that's good, at least.
Hellboy looks cool. I want to
The
read
new,
that comic. Is it good? Have
that's
you read
I
it?
think that's Mike Mignola, right? Pretty sure.
Yeah. It's the colors. I've looked at a few pages of it, and the artwork and the colors look fantastic. Like they look so good.
Yeah, I think Mike Mignola is like a really well-known artist, and his art style is pretty unique too.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I like the bold colors. I like the striking shadows. I like the dark gothic look. I'm gonna start reading it. It looks like something that I would like a lot. It looks beautiful.
Comics are There are so many manga reading apps. There aren't really that many comic reading apps, so it's kind of hard to find a place to read comics where you don't have to pay $7 an issue or whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that thing with Tachiyomi where I add read comics online as a source or whatever.
Wholesome, family-friendly content. Okay. Should
What?
we wrap up? Maybe don't tell people how to not give money to people. That's probably a good idea.
I mean, okay. I don't see the big deal, but okay.
It's just I feel like it pays off down the line if you just tell people to support creators that they like.
Oh,
Given
you're
that
thinking of
you
you're
are
thinking about sponsorships. Okay, I see
No,
it.
I just feel
Wink,
like that
wink.
there are plenty of avenues to learn about that kind of stuff, and I would like to keep my pro creator message intact.
Okay.
So
Well, edit out any pro piracy things that I've said in this podcast if
no,
you
it's
want.
okay. Whatever. There's a whole. I feel like okay, so I feel like Reddit should have already banned this sub by now, but for some reason they haven't. R/piracy. They're pretty good at telling people where to get stuff for
Yeah,
free that probably isn't free. So let's just leave it at that.
yeah.
Do you want to wrap up this episode? Any closing thoughts you have?
Um, the 3DS is one of my favorite game consoles because you can put Mii's in it and you can have them fly around and you wave your 3DS around and shoot at them in a terrible mini game. It's pretty fun.
And on that bombshell, that's it for this week of Coast Town. We'll see you again next week. Thank you for listening. And as always, send help.
All right.